Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me correctly? Or are there any issues with sound so far? Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. On behalf of the members of Mount St. Vincent University Business and Tourism Department, I would like to begin by thanking you for welcoming us this biannual gathering. As a descendant of the British settlers, I acknowledge and pay respect to the Indigenous peoples of the land from which we host today's meeting. The new Mi'kmaq people. I live and work on ancestral, unceded, and unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also pay respect to the knowledge embedded in the Indigenous custodian of this land and to the elders past, present, and future. My name is Caitlin, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this panel. For today's panel, we're going to offer some specific questions, which I welcome all panelists to answer. We'll be going through them. And if you have something to add later or to comment on another panelist, we encourage you to do so. As of right now, we currently are missing a couple of panelists, but that's okay. We're going to talk today with Catherine Kelly and Dawn Holdsworth, and we're going to learn a little bit about themselves and ask them to give us a bit of an introduction. So thank you so much, Dawn and Catherine, for being here. I really appreciate your coming and sharing your knowledge with all of us. So perhaps I will start with Catherine. Do you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction towards yourself and your company and your position?
Absolutely. Thank you, Caitlin. Hi, John, and to the team at the university. So my name is Catherine Kelly. I am the Managing Director and the Director of Account Management at Target. Target is a full-service advertising agency and brand architecture firm. We're based in St. John's, Newfoundland, and we're a team of about 35 people, and our agency has a 40-year track record. As an agency, we've been consistently rated as one of Canada's top 10 agencies. And in 2019, we were named by Strategy to be the inaugural Small Agency of the Year. So that's for an agency with less than 50 people. So beyond my business and marketing background, one thing that's notable for the team on this call is that one of our longstanding clients is Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. We've been their agency of record for 15 years. And Newfoundland Labrador Tourism is one of the most successful tourism destinations in Canada. In 2019, they were actually named one of the top 10 brands in all of Canada by Strategy, and they were ranked next to IKEA, WestJet, and McDonald's. So that's a pretty significant accomplishment for a tourism brand with a very marginal destination marketing budget.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Dawn, do you mind giving us an introduction as well?
Certainly, and Catherine, that's great to hear about your organization. Caitlin, thank you very much for having me part of the panel. Great to see all the names on the screen. Feel free to turn on your video if you wish, so we can see who we're talking to as well. But my name is Dawn Holdsworth. I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing, as well as what we call Strategic Business Development at Clearwater Seafoods. Some of you may recognize the brand and the name. It's a Halifax-based company, but we're actually North America's largest vertically integrated harvesting and processor of shellfish, wild-caught shellfish globally. It's a great company. It's recognized worldwide, but it was founded by a couple of entrepreneurs here in the late 70s who started selling lobster out of the back of a pickup truck, took some risks and grew the business from there. We operate, so we catch the majority of what we sell with our own vessels. We process it, and then we actually then sell it into the end market as well. So that's what we mean by fully vertically integrated. And we're in the business of lobsters, clams, scallops, and other crustaceans, shrimp, and some crabs. We have operations here in Atlantic Canada, but also in and around the UK, and we harvest also down outside of Argentina. And overall, we have sales and marketing staff across the globe. So about a third of our business is in the Americas, a third is in Europe, and a third is in Asia, driven a lot by China. And what's really interesting in hearing the land acknowledgement earlier, so for those who may have seen in the press this year, the company was handed off by the founders and sold after 40 some odd years, and we're brought by a consolidated group of a holding company that owns a number of food companies out of Vancouver called Premium Brands. And then the other half was actually bought by a coalition of Indigenous communities based across Nova Scotia as well as in Newfoundland. So really interesting cultural change that has had with us and the experience that we're getting here at Clearwater. And again, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And it is, I know a lot of us have heard a lot about that in the news. So it'll be interesting to hear more about that from inside, hearing about the transition and how that affected the business, or how that's improved things, or so on. Okay, so like I mentioned before, we will be asking several questions. We encourage you both to answer all of them. But if you feel like you want to comment on something else, or to have a more conversation about one particular issue, we are totally welcome to doing so. And if we do have our other panelists join us, we can just invite them to give an introduction, and also to be included on our conversations from then on. So my first question would be, how did you end up where you are today? Did you study marketing? Was this part of your career plan? Did you have education that influenced you to go into this? Perhaps I will start with Catherine.
So I went to Memorial University, based here in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I did do marketing, and I did the co-op program. So in that program, for any of the students that are on the call today that are either choosing to do co-op or in the co-op program, I think it's fantastic, because it gives you that opportunity to go and get some experience and figure out what you want to do, and in some cases what you don't want to do. So my work terms were not based in advertising, and they were not based in Newfoundland. So I did marketing work terms in Toronto in the tech sector, to be honest. And in doing that, I quickly realized two things. One, that I didn't want to be in that sector, that I wanted to be in a more creative industry, and that I missed the East Coast. And so that led me back to St. John's and here to Target, where I've been for 23 years. I know I look really young, but I'm actually, I'm joking. No, but I've been here for a long time. So that's my background.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Dawn, how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, I'm a bit of the opposite. So I mentioned before we joined the panel. So I'm, as they say out here, from away. Grew up in Ontario, ended up going to Queen's University, where I did do a Bachelor of Commerce, and I studied, at the time you had to focus, and I focused in on marketing and human resources, industrial relations. And, you know, one of the things at the time when I was in school, and it's changed a little bit, is, consumer packaged goods and marketing was a desired landing spot for many people. I did not have the opportunity to do co-op programs. I wish I did. But finding my way into the CPG space was what I wanted to do from a marketing lens. But it's really because of the training and the strategy side that comes with that about running a business. I was interested in managing a business, but did not have the entrepreneurial idea to actually go out and do something on my own. And it's still not too late. One of my bosses actually started a company in her 50s, which she's now doing very, very well with. But I ended up falling into the landscape and progressed my career through a number of different organizations. So I started with a company that did over-the-counter drugs. They've been bought several times since, but they make things like Advil and Centrum vitamins and cough and cold. And then I switched over to Heinz, where I spent almost 18, 19 years working at Heinz, which became Kraft Heinz, on the ketchup business and a bunch of other things, and then found my way out to the East Coast 5 years ago when an opportunity came up to join Clearwater Seafoods. And so not being from here, it's been a great experience, and really learning the East Coast culture, but also being part of a global business, which is really one of the things that attracted me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I see there is someone here by phone. Is that Solitha?
Hi, yes, it is Solitha.
Hi, thank you for joining us. I didn't realize that was you because it's just at the phone number. Thank you so much for being able to be here right now. Would you mind?
Thank you.
Would you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction for yourself and your companies? And then I'm going to ask you the same question I just did for Catherine and Dawn. That's okay.
Thanks, of course. I guess thanks to technology, we can get into the session via the phone as well, because I was having a bit of technical issues with
Not to
with
worry.
logging in.
Not to worry at all.
But
It happens.
So my name is Solitha Shortte. I am a graduate of Mount St. Vincent University, and I moved here in 2007 from the Caribbean island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I came here for school, and through my sister being here, going to the Mount, it was sort of an easy transition into the university. And I think that's true for a lot of international students or students from my country coming here to land where a sibling or cousin or someone that you know ended up. So after I graduated, I ended up in the nonprofit sector. I studied marketing, and I was able to use that skill set to help create fundraising activities within the industry that I ended up. And then it sparked my interest to start my own businesses as well. So now I have 2 companies that I am trying to build, and Soli Production is focused in the fashion industry, and Atlantic Scholarship Organization, that is my nonprofit where we focus on giving scholarships to students within marginalized communities. So I credit my love for Nova Scotia and my love for marketing from the professors that I was able to have close access to, or easy access to at the Mount, it being a smaller university. That attention really framed who I am right now, and I give a lot of credit back to the faculty there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And to go off of that, did you always know that you wanted to go into marketing, or was that kind of something that you took a class in at the Mount and kind of got interested in and then continued on that path after that?
Yeah, I came here with the hopes of, getting my post-secondary education, and fashion was my thing. So I knew I wanted to be somewhere in that realm after university. But I think I took a marketing class with Karen Blotnicki. I hope I'm not messing her name up. And that sparked my love for marketing. And after that, I decided this was the area that I wanted to focus on. She really made an impact on me in that classroom, and I think we sort of overlook sometimes the impression that most of our teachers and professors have on us and don't give them as much credit. So for me, she made a big impact. And then once I got into marketing, I loved being able to sort of craft concepts and ideas that can influence how people see products, and I could use that through my modeling as well. And even within the fundraising aspect, it helped a lot. So I'm grateful that I took that class, and marketing became my second love.
Wonderful. Actually, Karen Blotnicki is the one who gave me your contact as someone who she thought would be great for this. So that's nice to hear. I'll have to let her know if I think she's in class right now, so she couldn't attend, but
okay.
Yeah. So likewise, she obviously saw something in you. So that's great to hear.
Oh, that means a lot.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Solitha. I guess I'll go to my next question, which is, how did you I'm sorry, if you had to start your career over again, is there something that you would have done differently? And maybe I'll keep Soli here so that I can, since you're already unmiked, I'll pick on you again, and then I'll go to our other panelists.
I don't think I would have done anything different. I would if I had the opportunity like the other. I think it's the gentleman spoke of the co-op and going through that process, especially as an international student. I wish I had that opportunity to do that, but finances made it impossible for me to do the co-op program and still work within the 20 hours that is given to us to be able to afford staying here. So if that would be the one thing I would change, because then it would have allowed me better networking opportunities coming from a space where this was new and I didn't have as much connections. I think the co-op program allows you that, and that sort of in with the industry that you're hoping to get in. So it gives you that extra resume bump. But no, I love marketing, and I've been able to use my marketing skills to build both companies, or build as I'm building both of them. I think I landed where I was supposed to land, and I don't think I would change anything other than having a good foundation of a network to build on, because it is difficult when you're coming into a space that don't know anyone, and clicks and foundations have already been set up long before. So I think that would be the only thing I would change, was being able to have the opportunity to take advantage of the co-op program that was offered through the university.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm actually just completing my co-op right now. So it's I likewise think it's a great program, and it's nice to have that reassurance there. So thank you.
Nice.
Okay, and perhaps I'll go to Dawn next. Dawn, if you had to start your career over again, would you do anything differently?
It's such a challenging question, because there's always something with 2020 hindsight. But just building on a little bit of what Solitha said, I think one of the things that I could have done better, and I would choose to do better, is how I approached leveraging networking and relationship building through to get experience from people across all parts of the organizations. And I had an opportunity to do that. We didn't have LinkedIn back when I was initially joining the workforce, but I think if you think about how you want to leverage that going forward, is leverage it strategically, and not just reaching out like cold calls, but making sure you form real relationships with people, and take advantage, because I think most of us, as we go through our careers, are here to help and here to offer advice to people who are going to be the next generation running the businesses and running the world. And I look back, and I bring this up as an example because I did have a mentor early on in my career that I didn't leverage to the possibilities I could have, and unfortunately he's no longer with us, but I wish I could have gone back and done something differently there in order to really develop my own personal skill set. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that was something we touched on yesterday during the tourism panel, is the importance of having mentors. And I definitely agree with that. It's something that I think a lot of us would agree with as well. It's nice to have someone, especially in the field that you're in, to look up to and get advice on, or just suggestions on ways to kind of go about life. And I guess that's kind of what this is about too, because you're all sort of mentors to us, giving us an hour of your time to talk to us. So thank you. And Catherine, if you had to start over again, is there anything you would do differently?
I'll keep my answers short. I'm, like both panelists, pretty happy with where I've netted out. But the one thing that I would say based on my career, because I used the co-op experience to go to different locales, so Toronto versus Newfoundland, and to try different industries. but then I came back home like a lot of East Coasters do. And so what I would say to anyone on the call who is, when you're younger and when you're in a certain stage of your life cycle, so you don't have, you know, partners or spouses or kids or mortgages and all of those other things, you're much more mobile. And in today's society, even though tech allows us to have these calls and to work remote, and there's a lot of that, there's something to be said for moving to where the opportunities are. And in that first 3 to 5 years of your career, building that skill set, and you can accelerate it very fast depending on where you go and what company you align with. And then you figure out, you know, where you want to plant your roots, so to speak. So I did that a bit too fast in my career, even though I might not have done anything differently, but that's what I would encourage you to do on the call.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your answer. Okay, so we do have Stephanie here with us now. I'm going to give Stephanie a little bit of time to give an introduction as well, and then we'll continue on with our questions. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. I realized that I may not have been clear with the time difference here. So Stephanie thought that it was starting at 11:30, and so I'm going to take the responsibility for that. I am so sorry. I should have put Atlantic Standard Time. So thank you for being able to join us 30 minutes earlier or 45 minutes earlier than you thought you were going to be. So thank you.
No worries. Well, good morning, everyone. And sorry I'm late. I'm Stephanie Peters. I'm currently a digital strategist at a marketing agency called the T1 Agency. They focus on integrated brand experiences and consumer engagement. I think one of the second questions was, how did I end up where I am today? I'll give you a short spiel. I've been obsessed with consumer behavior my entire life. I studied marketing at the Mount, and I give a huge credit to the co-op program for helping me to break through the workforce. The third question, if you had to start your career over, what would you do differently? To be honest, I wouldn't change much in my career path. The one thing I would change though is my confidence, because I believe that I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I didn't push myself. So I want to say to everybody here today, it doesn't matter how old you are, please believe in yourself, because when you get in boardrooms, a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. And chances are you know more than them. So always believe in yourself. And I think, is that all the questions that we've done so far?
That's all the questions. Yeah.
Okay.
You're all caught
I'm
up.
not even that late.
Yeah, you're all good. We even started the panel a little bit late, so
Awesome.
you barely miss anything. That's great.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
Okay, so we're gonna go to our next question. This is and maybe Stephanie, since I've got you here, I'll ask you this one first. What particular skills, attributes, or training make a candidate stand out from the rest when applying for positions? And in particular, like part-time jobs, volunteering, extra work, things like that. What stands out to you?
Honestly, to me, I like when I'm hiring, I look for people that are well-rounded. For me specifically, when I went to the Mount, it was always important for me to not only be a part of co-op, but volunteer. I volunteered a lot of my time. I sat on a lot of volunteer boards. And because it's so easy, no, it's not that easy, but because it's easy to get on a volunteer board, you get a lot of experience that you would get in an office, and you always look better on resumes, right? Because I mean, think of a volunteer board. You do secretarial work, you do a little bit, you learn how an office is supposed to function, how to work with a team. So if you can get on any volunteer board, I definitely recommend that. I spent 3 years on the Fusion Halifax board as their Associate Director of Marketing and Communications. That was a fun time. I also sat on Canadian Parents for French board on their national board. That was also a very fun time. We traveled to Ottawa every 2 years for meetings. Actually, I think Solitha's on this call. She would have been on the board with me as well. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, try to volunteer as much as you can, because you're not giving away your time, you're gaining skills. Always think of it like that, because a lot of people don't like volunteer because, oh, it's free work, I want money. No, you're getting skills, right? So put the pride aside, volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. If you can also take little lessons, well, you don't have to take little lessons, there are videos on YouTube, but make sure you know Excel, no PowerPoint. These are everyday tools that you use at your job. And I could babble on forever, so I will give somebody else a chance.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. It's important to kind of dip your toes in everything, and always be willing to learn something new is a great skill and to have. So yeah, I agree. Wonderful. Thank you. Potentially, I will go to Catherine. Catherine, what particular skills, attributes, or training make a candidate stand out in applying for positions?
Absolutely. So I work in advertising, which means we hire a lot of creative individuals. So in that case, it's a very different ask. So I'll speak particularly to when we look at new hires coming right out of graduation. The first thing I'd say is get the basics right. If we see typos in your resume or grammar errors in your resume, especially if you're coming from a comms or a marketing background, we don't even look at what your volunteer experience is because we put you in the no pile. So get the basics right. And then the second thing I would say is know your audience. So know who you're applying to. And, you know, when I was in when I was in your shoes, I would have a resume that was 80% done, and you customize the 20%. So you want to call out, if you're applying to an ad agency, that's a very different organization than if you're applying to Clearwater. And so look for those opportunities to customize your resume and to call out a little bit of different experience, whether it is, as Stephanie said, volunteer experience that might relate more to aquaculture than to, you know, agency life. And for someone that's coming right out of university, if you don't have a portfolio, you know, so if you're not engaged in the creative side or you don't have a tech portfolio, then give us your transcript. We want to know how you did academically, unless you have significant work experience to compensate for that. And if your transcript isn't phenomenal, then tell us why, and tell us why in that cover letter. And maybe it's because you know, had significant hobbies that you were engaged in that helped round you out as an individual, or you sat on 4 volunteer boards. But we want to know that because, you know, when you're looking for that first job, you might not have the right experience. So we want to see what else makes you a solid candidate.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's good, very good advice that I will definitely be taking. So wonderful. Thank you. And I will go to Dawn next. Dawn, do you have any specific skills, attributes, or training that make a candidate stand out?
I think I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the reality is, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but especially when we're looking at new hires coming right out of university, we believe they have a lot of experience and a lot to bring to the table, but we also I think they're at such an early stage in their career that, you know, what's most important to me is the attitude and the fit of the person, and are they going to be able to come in and work within the organization and contribute and grow is one of the things that is most important to me versus some of the background and the experiences they may have had, because there's so much more ahead of them than there is behind them, not to dismiss any of the good accomplishments people have. And then the other thing I look for is because we're more, my marketing role is more of a management role and a business management role. I look for the logic that people apply to problem solving, and, you know, for lack of a better term, looking if they can connect the dots. So any example that can be provided which highlights a situation where you had to leverage data to identify an issue and make a recommendation and then solve for it, or even in a personal situation where you've had to take the story and explain it and solve for something. That's really what I look for when trying to bring on new hires, because who knows what they're going to be asked to take on fully when they get into the organization. So you want to make sure they can work with others and also can solve for challenges that are ahead of them.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Solitha, do you have any particular skills, attributes, or training that makes someone stand out to you as a potential applicant for a position?
Yeah, I think just as everybody else has, touched on, for me, I'm looking for how driven the individual is. I'm coming out of university. There's so many different variables that sort of hinder your access to being on several boards or being involved in community service. But there is still the sort of area for you to be a part of things within the university that you can also use. How you work within a group is important, and especially for an international student, because for me it was difficult getting into the community. But like Stephanie said, because we sat on the two boards, it was really easy once you got introduced to that sort of world, and you can have that balance between getting your academic down pat, as well as how do you fit within the community that you live in, and how driven you are. Even if you're just volunteering an hour or two at something, it shows balance. But it's also, for me, because I'm in the fashion industry and the nonprofit, how do you work with people? Because with both of those, I need to know that the team that I have around me can lean on each other, lead each other. And leading doesn't always mean that you're the one at the top of the group, but also being able to contribute to whether it's a fundraising event or being part of a cast on a set. How do you work with people is kind of key for me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will go to our next question, which is, what do you like about your work and what do you dislike? And what do you find the most challenging? So for this one, I will stick with Solitha first, if you don't mind. Is there anything that you find positive, negative about the type of work you do, and what is the most challenging?
Yeah, I think I'll hit on the challenging first, because it's working with people, because there's so many different personalities that for me I have to manage as an agent and the CEO of the fashion company. Being able to deal with all of the different personalities and all of the different needs that I come across, it can be draining. And for anybody who's getting into a field where you have to manage people, one advice or something I'm trying to take on myself is being able to distance the personal and the professional world, because it becomes really draining. And with the challenges of COVID that has, shut us down and caused us to sort of reevaluate things, it's valuable to focus on self when you're in these positions. So that's one thing I'm trying to focus more on is self-care as you're hustling to get the proposals in, and you're doing all of these things for the job and for the business. Don't forget self in that hustle. I think what was the other part of the question, because I was so focused on what was challenging for me.
Not to worry. The other one was, what do you like about your work and what do you dislike?
And I love the people. So it's sort of the double-edged sword there. I love working with people, and I think one of the panelists, spoke about their love for being able to analyze consumer behavior. So that's something that I love, being around people and seeing how different marketing strategies impact them, and how can I create something that's going to attract people to my business, because there's different layers to my company. And for the nonprofit world, how do I attract funders? And I started the nonprofit within the COVID pandemic. So 2020, I don't know if it was crazy of me, but I knew I wanted to give back to the community that has given me so much, and being able to come up with fundraising ideas, because everybody is struggling, especially those within the marginalized communities. They're getting hit even harder. So for me, it was just creating fundraising ideas that people are going to react to, and I've been able to fuse both industries, so the fashion and the nonprofit, by using my passion for fashion to sort of live out my purpose as giving back to the community. So that aspect of working with people as well is a kind of not hate, but a love challenging kind of relationship for me in my businesses.
Wonderful. Actually, I really like those comments about working with people, because I think it's easy to forget that marketing, it does deal a lot with people. And at least for myself, when we've done marketing, it is a lot of, you have to take a psychology course at the university. And I think it's really interesting to say that, because it is a lot about learning how to analyze people, how people think, and it is very consumer based. So thank you.
Correct.
I will go to Dawn next. Is there anything you particularly love or dislike about your work, or what do you find most challenging?
Yeah, I guess so one of the things I like from my experience, I've been in larger organizations, is people, you kind of change jobs within the company all the time. And so it's always refreshing. So if you're on a brand, you might change brands every 2 to 3 to 5 years, depending at what level you're at within your organization. So it's like getting a new career start, and it re-energizes you, even though you're still within the same organization. So that's one of the things I really like. One of the other things I like, and I know there's a couple of agency partners that are in the panel today, is, we can't do it all, and we shouldn't expect to do it all. We don't have the answer. So working with external partners to really solve problems and address them has been great. And again, that speaks to working with other people, but you get companies who have, that is their expertise, and they draw on their experience on everything. So you present your issue and what you're trying to accomplish, and then they help solve that together with you. I find that very rewarding, and a little bit competitive. So when you win, it's a lot of fun. When you don't win, it's not as much fun, but having a team with you when you're winning is always really rewarding. And I think one of the things that's most challenging is when you're trying to influence meaningful change. It can be really challenging. And even coming here to this organization, which I think has been on a journey, but it's a global CPG, but an entrepreneurial fishing company that's moving to become a food company. And how you try and influence doing things differently versus the way it's always been done, it can be a bit challenging. But again, as I say, it's very rewarding when you do get things through and succeed. And so that would be my answers to that question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Stephanie, do you have anything that you particularly like or dislike or find challenging as a marketing professional?
Well, I'll start with the exciting part. I really like the fact that I get to be a part of how consumers engage with brands. I get to be a part of how they feel about brands and decisions that they make. I get to ignite that. I mean, that's super exciting. On the boring side of things, there's not much I hate about marketing. I mean, I'm very obsessed with consumer behavior and pricing psychology and just behavior in general. I took a lot of psychology courses at the moment because I knew obviously it coupled so well with marketing. The daunting parts of the job, I will be honest, is all the paperwork. I mean, I'm sure nobody likes paperwork. You got to keep your account in order. You got to get the right PO number. You got to make sure everything's organized. But when you get to a higher stage in your career, you have assistants for that. So you can focus on the real fun stuff, the strategy, what drives people. I particularly like what Dawn was talking about, that sometimes it gets really difficult when you're trying to ignite change, especially when you have a lot of people that don't understand how quickly marketing is moving and how different people communicate online now. Like, when I started the Mount, we did not communicate in memes. Memes were not a thing. TikTok wasn't a thing. 6-second videos, they weren't a thing. Skits, no, nobody did that. So it's always a huge challenge to keep going with the times, especially when you work somewhere that's not up to the times and you have people that are not up to the times and they don't want to listen to you. It could be really difficult to be happy about the work you're doing and where you are. That's it for me.
Wonderful, thank you. I think speaking for a lot of the marketing students here, it's great to hear all of your positive feelings towards being in marketing. It's very motivating for all of us who want to be in marketing in the future. Makes us feel good for being in this program.
Yeah, feel good.
Yeah.
And take all Dawn Shiner's classes. Sorry.
Dawn Shiner's? Okay.
Yeah, he's the best.
Good to know. All right. Thank you. I actually have taken some of his classes, so. Catherine, do you have anything that you particularly like or dislike about being in marketing, or what do you find most challenging?
Absolutely. So I agree with everything that the panelists have said so far. I would add that, I'll just go straight to the challenge, because I think that anyone that has spent, most of us have a significant track record as marketing professionals. So clearly we like what we do, and it's a dynamic industry. The landscape constantly changes, especially in the now with technological influences, and Stephanie is very passionate about that. You can hear it in her voice. But so the landscape constantly changes, because of technological changes, pop culture influences. It's creative. No day is created the same if you work in marketing or advertising. And that's not for everyone. There's a reason that certain people do engineering and marketing people gravitate towards our industry. But I would say the biggest challenge that I see in the industry is that it's misunderstood. And I say that largely in advertising terms, but it applies in marketing as well, and it applies in tourism. And, the similarity between advertising and tourism is that I think a lot of people feel like there are very low barriers to entry. And, you can become a tourism entrepreneur simply by starting a kayak shop, or, opening your house as an Airbnb. You're in the tourism industry if you do that. So very low barrier to industry versus if you're an engineer. And the same misperception exists about advertising and marketing, frankly. Advertising is pervasive. You see it everywhere. Everyone has an opinion on it. And I think that people don't recognize, even at the client level, no offense, Dawn, but when you're client side, I think a lot of people look at it as if, it's common sense, versus recognizing that there's a significant amount of professionalism and pedigree that goes into what we do as a professional industry. And in the advertising industry in particular, I shouldn't say everybody, people look at it, some clients in particular, if they're not sophisticated, look at it as if it's art, or it's just creativity for creativity's sake. And as an agency, our philosophy is very deliberate. And we look at, we talked a little bit about consumer behavior, psychology. Anyone that's going through the marketing program understands that that's baked into what we do. And, so what I would say in terms of advertising and as a profession, there's a lot of science, a lot of strategy, a lot of understanding consumer behavior and consumer intent. We're trying to incite, whether it's build awareness, or incite an audience to feel a certain way, to act a certain way, to behave a certain way. That's science and strategy. And so for us in advertising, the biggest challenge is, I think, just that misperception that our industry is art, that it's easy, that anyone can do it, that it's just creativity for creativity's sake, versus understanding the science and the discipline that goes into who we are as marketers and who we are as advertising professionals.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a great answer. And I'll keep you on for our next question. If you could say something to your younger self, what would it be?
I think Don used this term earlier, hindsight is 20/20, and it's true. But most of us are happy with where we've netted out. I'm sure we would have all done a few things differently. So what I would say is, and this is not as much advice to my younger self, but just advice in general is, we're all told to follow our passion. I don't know that that's actually what I would have said to my younger self. My advice is follow what you're good at. And, you know, there are lots of things in life that we're passionate about. I think those things become hobbies and become extracurricular things that, you know, we derive enjoyment from. Steve Jobs, he actually wanted to be a monk, whether anybody on the call knows that or not. He was very passionate about Zen Buddhism, and he was good at tech, and became exceptionally good at tech, as we all know. And that is the one thing, I mean, anyone that's on the call has decided that they're, you know, enrolled in marketing. So we've made that decision. And some of us, like Stephanie, are exceptionally passionate about it, which is fantastic. But my advice is to find what you're good at and to refine that and to derive enjoyment from other facets of your life. Like those passions they serve a different purpose.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's actually some really great piece of advice, especially because, you know, we're often told to do what you love, but often I find a lot of people can lose interest in those things when you try and make a career out of it or make money off of it. So that is some very nice practical advice. Thank you. And maybe I'll go to Stephanie afterwards, because I think you are doing what you love and also what you're good at. So
yeah, I was gonna start with that. I definitely agree with Catherine. You know, it's not all the time you should do what you're passionate about, because sometimes that doesn't translate into living wages. But luckily for me, what I'm good at is people reading. I read people. I persuade people. I analyze people. It's what I'm good at. I've always been good at it since I was a child, and I'm very passionate about it. So sometimes what you're good at is not what you're passionate about, and that's okay. So I definitely agree with Catherine in taking the advice and, you know, doing what you're good at. What would I tell my younger self? I think I briefly answered another question, but I would say to her and to all of you to be more confident. Sometimes you're in the room with 10 people and you think you're about to say something dumb, but 9 out of 10 times, it's the smartest thing in the room. And sometimes when you hear what people have to say, and sometimes it's what you're thinking, you feel stupid. So please always give yourself that chance, because you're really the only one you can count on. That would be my advice.
awesome. Thank you. That's great to hear, especially for me right now, speaking in front of 60 people. That's something I have to remind myself to be confident.
You're doing great, Caitlin. You are doing
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. A little bit panic at the beginning, but we're good.
We're good.
Dawn, if you could say something to your younger self, what would it be?
Yeah, so the one that I'd written down was be patient. So I think in the beginning of my career, you know, we're all very passionate. You want to accelerate and move up the ladder and do really well. But you realize it might be 2 or 3 years over a 30+ year career. So making sure that you appreciate where you are and use that opportunity to learn and to develop and to grow and move forward within an organization that was the one thing I'd written down. Just to build on what Stephanie was saying, though, I think that the confidence one struck a chord. The other thing that I would build on, so it's a separate point, is, you know, everyone in the room is, you know, just like you. And, you know, I used to be a little bit intimidated by whether it's the CEO or other high level managers that I was presenting to and things like that. And I realized through my career now, they're just like us. They came through the same path that we came through, and they're looking for your help to help them drive the business. And so obviously you need to be respectful and understanding of the audience, but don't be intimidated just because of someone's title, because really, for the most part, they're just looking to do well and value you as well. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Soli, if you had any piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
I think just to piggyback off of what some of the panelists have said as well, in pulling from each of them, would be trusting the process. Because I think it's a gentleman who just said, you know, it doesn't matter sort of where you are time-wise, trust that process, that if you're really passionate about what you're doing, and there's that love for the career, the job, that field that you're in, stop looking at what society has labeled us as achievable pointers, because then I came here and I was sort of behind the crowd age-wise, and if I was to go back to the younger Solitha, would be to tell her, just trust your process, and not look at timelines based on how society has laid them out. But I kind of do disagree with Stephanie and sorry, Steph, and the other panelists, where for me, going after my passion, that has led me now to being in the fashion industry, but allowing myself the path to shift. So I wanted to be a model. That was everything I wanted to do when I came here. However, I ended up owning a modeling agency and using that love for fashion and my passion that I had for modeling to craft other people's journeys, as well as using that love and that passion for fashion to be able to carry my nonprofit. Because with that, starting within COVID and doing all of, the jumping over the hurdles, because as a new nonprofit, getting access to funding and fund and donors, it's really hard. So if I didn't have that passion and love when the money wasn't coming in, I would have given up a long time ago and taken a job just to pay the bills. But the passion is so important. It doesn't work all the time, but allow yourself to trust the process that you're on is really what I would say. And don't limit yourself to one thing. So as a marketer, maybe there's other things you love doing. Don't think you have to focus in on one and master that. I know it's often said, you're doing several different jobs and you're a master of none. Key thing is doing them to the best of your ability, and it's allowed me the opportunities that I have. So trust your process is what I would tell her, and tell the other people in the program that's coming up. Just trust your process. Don't look at what other people have set as benchmarks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You have a unique perspective on this, because you are an entrepreneur and a marketing professional. So you've experienced the patience of having to wait to get your business off the ground and finally start getting your bills, getting those checks in. So that's great to hear from you about that. Thank you. And I kind of also answered my next question, which was about any advice you would give to tourism students, but I'm assuming that a lot of those things that you would say to your younger students, you'd also say to students as well. So I'll go on to my next question, which is, what sort of positions should students seek out after graduating in the marketing field? And Soli, if I can keep you on here, I would love to hear your opinion on that.
I think to get in, I think the first one of the panelists said in an earlier question was sort of learning the different areas and being able to, I think it's to multitask, if I kind of summing up what they said. But when I started, I wanted to jump right in at, I have my degree. I wanted to go in and just hit it off, and I started as a marketing director and doing things that sort of where I knew that I should be, but forgetting that if I get into the company and start learning from the ground up and not being ashamed of the positions you have to take to learn every aspect of that company so you can move through. And I think the gentleman said, being able to move from one department to the next. Don't limit yourself. So I don't think one spaces where I would say go into or identify one, but sort of go into the industry open to what is available, but also knowing that you're learning and you're building on your skill set so you can get to the next level, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll go to Dawn next. Are there any particular positions students should look for when they graduate?
I think it was well said there, and I think it's depending. No one knows exactly where they want to go when you come out of school. I'd be surprised if you know what you want to do 20 years from now. But my experience was I benefited from having a chance to learn the ropes and learn the fundamentals. So if there's an opportunity and you think that appeals to you, then I would look for something like that. On the flip side, I can see there are some people who are very much interested in the startup opportunities and learning everything under when the house is on fire, and that might be something it can work for someone as well. So it's really what's important to you and what you think will help position you for where you might want to go down the road in your career.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Catherine, we'll go to you next. Are there any positions that you think are beneficial for students to go for when they graduate?
That's actually a pretty big question, Caitlin, because I mean, the reality is the marketing industry is exceptionally dynamic. And, so whether we look at it at the entrepreneurial level, you want to start a business and, that's an option. Whether you want to go into an ad agency, and an ad agency, I did a marketing degree with one advertising course, which did not make me prepared for an ad agency. And so when I started, I had to learn a lot about advertising in particular. I didn't even know enough to be dangerous, to be honest. So advertising is an option. And realistically, the nature of marketing being so dynamic and also pervasive. Clearwater, it's an aquaculture-based industry and company is an option. There are every industry sector, in the world has a marketing facet. And so there's tremendous opportunity. That's the beauty of being in marketing as a profession. And, in Stephanie's case, she's very specialized within the digital sector. That's also an option. And you have to, ideally be passionate about that sector, have a technological underpinning, understand social media, be engaged in it, want to be online, I would say more often than not. And so there is tremendous opportunity. And to go back to what the previous two panelists said, the one thing I would say is when we start out in marketing is to understand that you're not necessarily going to go into a director position. And so we need to be honest with ourselves about if you're an account executive or an account coordinator, that's okay. And you'll build up that skill set, and to be patient with yourself, as we talked about. I mean, and the final thing I would say for the students on the call is there is a big difference between when you go to a smaller organization. So Target is a company, we're 35 people. When I hear Dawn talk about the footprint of Clearwater, I don't know, Dawn, that you said the number of employees in the company. I assume it's in the hundreds, if not more. But there are, there are differences when you work with a small company where you become a little bit like a Swiss Army knife. And so you learn, a full facet of different transferable skills versus the bigger the organization that you go into, you become almost an expert or purist. And so that's one of the things that I would say in looking at, when you go out into the world, there are always pros and cons and trade-offs. Smaller organizations give you much more exposure to a broad swath of transferable skills. I thought I wanted to be in CPG, consumer packaged goods in Toronto, and I'm very happy that I didn't, because I would have went to CPG school, learned how to, sell a very particular product versus the marketing expertise that I have in advertising.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Stephanie, what positions should students seek out after graduation in the tourism field?
Well, I really like what Catherine was saying. It's really important for you to work with, not a startup, but if you could work with a small organization, that you wear different hats very quickly and you learn a lot more. For me personally, in my career, I I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm quite an obsessive person. So I planned out my entire career in university. I knew that my first job was going to be in nonprofit. I wanted to be a part of an organization where I had nothing and I had to make something. My second job, I wanted it to be corporate. I wanted to have everything and fight to make something. Because, with all the bureaucracies, you're like, oh, we can't do this right now because it's going to cost too much. Oh, we don't have time to do this. And with those two, with nonprofit and corporate, I knew at that point I would already know, I'd be in a position where I know what I wanted to do. And I chose digital. Digital is the part of marketing that is the most measurable and my favorite. So, but sometimes that's not ideal for people. You can't just wake up and say, okay, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I'm going to only work in nonprofit and I'm only going to work in corporate. Like I said, I'm obsessive. I'm crazy. I go to a lot of networking events, a lot of like corporate conferences, and I add a lot of people on LinkedIn and I talk to a lot of random people. So I have grown my network substantially. But if you know what you want to do and okay, I want to work in marketing for sure and I want to work in a marketing place, look for jobs that have the coordinator title in them, because oftentimes coordinators do everything. They have to support the directors, they have to support the accounts team, they have to support almost every different aspect of marketing. So it really helps you learn the different aspects, and then it's easier to choose what you want your discipline to be. For me, I got stuck in social media and I was like, okay, social media is very interesting, but get to the digital side a little bit deeper. But if you're interested in digital, social media coordinator would be the easiest way to get into it and work with a director of digital media or like a digital guru.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Actually, as a project coordinator right now, I definitely agree. He's getting a lot of experience doing a whole bunch of different things. So that's great to hear from. Thank you. And I believe we have time for one last question. So I'm actually going to, again, keep you, Stephanie, here. And I'm going to ask you if you have any final thoughts or pieces of advice for students before we sign off for the day.
Let's see. I don't think it's much different from what I've said before, but be confident in yourself. And one of the most important things for Halifax, especially, because there's a lot of nepotism going on, you need to network. There's a lot of networking events in the city. Get out there. I used to try to go to 4 networking events a week, just different industries. Just get to know people, and it won't be long before you find yourself at a Christmas potluck or Thanksgiving potluck, because Haligonians are very friendly and they'll invite you to their house very quickly. But that's the most important thing. Network, network, network. Make sure you have a large network. And in no time, your name's gonna roll off people's tongue. Oh yeah, no, Stephanie's good at that. Yeah, no, she's the person I go to for that. Become a resourceful person. Know a little bit of everything, and it'll take you a long way. Even though you don't think that there's anything that you could be an expert in, it's better to be a Jill of all trades than a master of none. You know what I mean? That's actually my Twitter slogan. Anyways, that's it from me.
I like that. It makes me feel a lot better because I am definitely not a master of one thing. So it's nice to know that having a broad range of talents is good. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And perhaps I'll go to Catherine next. Do you have any final thoughts or pieces of advice for students?
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Caitlin and team. I mean, what I would say is and I think Stephanie embodies this, which is your career is your responsibility. And, you know, as an employer, I see far too often people expect that their manager or that the company is taking responsibility for the career. And there is some responsibility. I would say it's mutual, but as individuals, and certainly as you look at, you know, depending on where you are in your university education, it's your responsibility. And so once you do join the workforce, you need to give thought to where you want your career to evolve. And it doesn't have to be, I remember when I first started at Target, I was asked, you know, what's your 10-year plan? And I didn't know that then. And certainly in today's day and age, nobody knows what their 10-year plan is, except for Stephanie maybe. But that aside, it is your responsibility. And so, you know, if there are certain assignments that you hear about that you're interested in, not necessarily driving or leading, but being part of, just observing, just, you know, being a fly on the wall, and, you know, to look for those opportunities and to create them. That's what I would say, and not to be in the passenger seat. When it comes to your career, you have to have one firm hand on the steering wheel if your employer has the other hand. Otherwise, put those two hands on the steering wheel and, you know, just figure out where you want to drive that bus. And I think too many of us have just, you know, taken it day by day and really, you know, not been active enough in shaping where their career progression should go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I like that a lot, especially considering I'll be graduating soon and going towards the workforce. It's great to have those pieces of advice. So thank you. And Dawn, do you have any final thoughts or pieces of advice for students?
Those are some great answers. So building on those, it's I guess the one thing is you have to remember you have to enjoy what you do. You're going to be doing it for a long time, and you might take some different steps along the way, but just make sure that you find something that is meaningful and enjoyable, or else it could be a bit more of a challenging environment. So good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. And Soli, do you have any final pieces of advice or thoughts for students?
Yeah, thanks again for having me here with this amazing panelist. And for me, in terms of advice, I think it's Don, the gentleman just said, just to piggyback off of that as well, love what you do, because when the challenges hit, if you don't love it, it's the most draining thing, and it is draining on its own. Facing the challenges, especially what we've seen over these last 2 years. So love what you do. But another piece of advice, as from the industries that I'm in and the looking now through these lens, we have a responsibility as marketers to shape and frame how people consume, whether it's a product or service. Representation matters. Sometimes I look at ads and I'm seeing the disrespect for certain communities and the level of just lack of thought put behind how a product or idea is put out into the consumer realm. And you're thinking, who was the marketing team? And it breaks my heart as a marketer, because I love marketing and I love this industry as well, even though it has taken me into different avenues. Be aware as the next generation of marketers coming out into this industry, that it is your responsibility to frame how people see themselves and who feels isolated and who have that sense of belonging to the communities that we're in. So be really conscious of the marketing strategies or the campaigns, the advertising campaigns that are going out there, that true representation is being showcased at the forefront. And I think that's up to us as marketers to shift the change in how people see themselves and how people see each other.
That is a very great last note to end on. Thank you so much. Very good. Yes, I totally agree. It is crucial and very good piece of advice to a whole bunch of marketing students ready to get out into the workforce. So thank you. And on behalf of Mount St. Vincent University Department of Business and Tourism, we would like to thank today's panelists for being part of our fall 2021 career week. I almost said winter, but I think it's because it was really cold here today. Our fall 2021 career week, connecting students with industry professionals, is a win-win for everyone. And the real life experiences you bring to the students is an integral part of their education and future success. So thank you so much, everyone, on behalf of the students here. And thank you all of the students for attending, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. We do have another panel coming at 12 o'clock, so at noon today. That's going to be with Saeed El Dirahali, and he is going to be our fireside chat. So thank you, everyone. I hope to see some of the students there. And again, thank you to our panelists.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Go Mount.